And welcome to the Clackamas County Master Gardeners Fall into Gardening 10-minute university presentation of the enabled gardeners. Here's a question for you. What helps fight disease, builds strength, improves memory, boosts mood, reduces stress, helps in addiction recovery, fosters human connections, heals, and empowers? Countless research articles point to one answer: gardening. But what happens when physical limitations make it difficult or painful to garden? Do we just have to say, oh, well, I guess I can't do that anymore, and lose all the benefits that gardening provides? Fortunately, no. There's no reason you can't continue gardening for as long as you live. Today, we're going to explore ways to help you overcome obstacles for a lifetime of gardening. As we age or are confronted with illness or injury, we must find ways to adapt to our current abilities by using the proper tools, incorporating good body mechanics, creating a purposeful garden design, and using wise plant selection. We can continue to reap the benefits and the joy that gardening provides by using these tools. We have 4 objectives today. There's a wealth of material on adaptive gardening, enough for multiple hours of classes if we went in depth, but we only have 30 minutes. So let's focus on building a framework so you can assess your situation, what you need to do to optimize your time in the garden. In order to make wise decisions and adaptations, take time to make an honest assessment of your physical abilities, the environment you have for gardening, and what type of garden you'd like to have. There are tools made specifically for strength and mobility issues that can make your gardening time last longer and be less painful. There are even pulley systems and irrigation methods that can make it easier for you to care for your garden. And what do you need to do to create or adapt gardening spaces that you can manage given your time and abilities? Decide what type of plants you want to grow and choose those that are low maintenance and perfect for the site that you have. So let's talk about assessing your abilities. How is your balance? Do you need railings? Do you need to use a wheelchair, a walker, or a cane? Is there a possibility that you might need to use those in the future? Can you kneel down, get down to the ground, and more importantly, get up again? Do you have difficulty reaching overhead? Do you tire easily? Is your lifting ability limited to grip, mobility, or strength? Be honest and adapt the mindset that whatever limitations you are experiencing, this quote from a professional gardener in her 70s is perfect. It is not a weakness. It's just accepting the situation and working with it and working around it. I just love that. She helps gardeners in their 80s and 90s as a professional gardener. Once you've established your current situation, it's time to assess how to move forward. Because there are so many variations in people's abilities, needs, and space, today we're going to go over some basic concepts that you can adapt to your life. We're also going to focus on how to think about how to make gardening easier. So what makes a gardening tool ergonomic? You've heard the term ergonomic a lot, but specifically to gardening tools, it's focusing on choosing the right tool for a particular chore and that designs to keep your hand, wrist, and forearm in a straight line. Often ergonomics involve thicker handles and paddings for an easier grip. They have mechanisms that minimize fatigue. They're the proper size for your hand and height. Lightweight is often ergonomic, but not always. If you say are using a hoe, sometimes a heavier weighted hoe is easier to use in the garden and you don't have to use your body to do the work. Anything that promotes good posture is a good ergonomic tool. And then multi-purpose, while not necessarily ergonomic, they can help by keeping the amount of tools you have to carry around with you and thus avoiding fatigue. So I'd like to talk about pruners and loppers. This is one of the tools that we gardeners use probably the most. And getting the right kind, there are so many variations. You need to kind of take a look and see what works for you. I found a great looking pair of pruners at Costco one day, and I took them home and I opened up the package and they were way too big for my hand. And to the point where I had to use two hands to use them like a lopper. So that's not a good investment of my time. Fortunately, I work for my husband, but here's a way to measure exactly what size pruner you need. And many of the pruning companies have them offer them in different size as well as in right-handed and left-handed styles. There are straight pruners, as you see on the left, multiple purpose. They can be used all the time for many different things, but it's possibly more painful for arthritic joints or if you have carpal tunnel. Ergonomic pruners tend to keep your hand and wrist and forearm all in a line, as you can see by the picture down here. And it's easier on the joints, less effort is needed if it's held in the correct position, but it's not as flexible in terms of the positions that you can use them. Now the blades of both loppers and pruners, there are two styles. There's the bypass, and that works like a scissors. It gives a very clean cut, as long as they're kept sharp and clean. And then there's the Anvil that works like a knife against a chopping board. These are great for dead wood, old wood, but they can have a tendency to crush more tender material. Now for the mechanisms, there's a standard that doesn't have any mechanism, but there are two that really are helpful for gardeners. And this is the ratcheting pruners. Those usually come in Anvil. And so each time you squeeze, it goes through a little bit further through the material. It's good for people with carpal tunnel arthritis or with smaller hands. Oops, sorry, going back. The rotating handle pruners, these are usually a bypass blade. And the bottom handle rotates as you squeeze your hand. So it's a very easy motion. It's good for people with carpal tunnel, weak hands, and arthritis again. Loppers. My favorite pair of loppers right now is this picture that we have up above. It is aluminum handles, so it's quite lightweight. It extends into 5 different positions to pretty close in to a really good reach. And when you've got something, a multi-purpose tool like that, you can work in close, or as you need to work up higher, you can keep your hands low, but still, if you extend it out, get a pretty good reach. These particular loppers have a gear in them that gives 40% more torque when you're using the lopper. And then there's also ratcheting loppers, just like the pruners, that cut incrementally. Long-handled tools. They should be between chin and the top of the head in height. So this rake is too short for this man. This is too tall, going to get in the way. And this is just about right. And the object of when you're using a long-handled tool is to be able to have it so that it's the proper length to keep your back straight, not like this. This is the proper position for using a long-handled rake. Back is straight, hands are 18 to 24 inches apart. You rake from the side, not from the front, and then change sides frequently. And all of this may seem really basic, but we get into bad habits. So it's helpful to be conscious of what we're doing and how we're using our bodies as we go throughout our gardening. You can adapt standard tools. Many ways, D handles help with the grip. These easy grip handles you can use both in short handle tools like a trowel and long handle tools. And Sean, who's running our chat today, has suggested that a drill with an auger is an incredible time and energy saver. You can get different sizes of augers that work great for planting bulbs and such. And she uses a 4-inch auger on an electric drill with a side handle and a back handle to really help control, because 4 inches auger has quite a bit of torque. And so this just helps her do transplanting really quickly and efficiently. So ergonomic long handled tools. I'm going to include the root slayer shovel here, which is not necessarily super long handled, but it's really useful for transplanting and digging up shrubs and stuff. It has a serrated edge, and then the length of it makes it very easy to manipulate around different roots and gives you good leverage. Expandable rake. Again, this is a multi-purpose tool that you can use. In the short version, it's closed in tight, so you can use it in amongst your garden plants. And then as it extends, the shovel width goes out, so use it for gardening, raking leaves and such. And then you can also buy long handle tools that already have the adaptations installed. And this one has D handles that you can adjust to the length that you need it. There are some small things that make a big difference. Let's take a look at this woman and do a quick assessment. She's in a wheelchair and she's watering these plants in this truck. She's using a standard garden hose and a standard nozzle. Notice the position that she's in. It looks really uncomfortable, but she needs to do this to get to the back of the raised garden bed that she's using. A better option would be a lightweight, long aluminum nozzle. They have these that work both with a lever and with a thumb grip to make it easier on your hands. And then a coiled garden hose or an expandable hose that would be lighter and easier for her to manage. Another thing that can make a big difference is ergonomic gardening gloves. These gloves were designed by an orthopedic surgeon, but they also have gloves that are like a compression glove that really help support your hand. So take a look around and see what's available. Planting and weeding. Looked a lot at the American Association of Occupational Therapists, and they have some really good methods for keeping your body in the right position. So kneeling on both knees and supporting yourself with one hand is just bad form. It puts strain on your back, your arm, and your wrist. By using a split stance, that is one knee down and then one leg in front of you, you're keeping your back straighter and allowing you to take pressure off of your arms. Let's get up close and personal with weeds. The seat, there's this kneeler and seat combination tool. And the seat's great for jobs that don't require you to get down to the ground, like deadheading, pruning, things like that. It also provides a place to rest. When you use it in the kneeler position, you've got padding for your knees, but I would recommend that you don't use it as she is here, but use the split stance again, so you can have more of your weight balanced between the two legs and keep your back straighter. They also have handles to help you stand up. And this has great little pockets for gardening tools along the side. The wheeled cart is on my Christmas list because I don't like to have to get up and move things as I work down the garden bed. And this way I could just scooch along. It's got the seating ability. You can't get down on the ground, but if you're sitting and working, this would be a really good option. Again, this cart has tool storage both below and in a basket along the side. And then the stand-up weed puller is great for like weeds with long tap roots, thistles, dandelions, things like that. You just push it in with your foot, pull it up, and it grabs the entire tap root and brings it up. Really efficient. So for pruning, we have some of the same issues going on that we do with weeding. And that is, a couple of weeks ago, I was pruning my lavender hedge and I was in this position on the left. I was kneeling over. I had my hedge shears out in front of me and I was working for 10 minutes going along and I stood up and my lower back said to me, "Oh, honey, you are not 30 anymore." And so I started thinking, how do I do this better? So I adopted the split stance, as you see here, and keeping the tool as close to my body as possible. It saved a lot of wear and tear on my back. So just think about what you're doing and then reassess, how can I do this better? Let's talk about moving heavy objects. We all know about you're supposed to lift with your knees, not with your back. So picture on the left is just wrong. And one of the tools that I really like using these days is this garden cart. And it's a replacement for a wheelbarrow, but it also works as a dolly. So it has more stability than a one-wheeled wheelbarrow has. And you can use it as a dolly by taking your heavy object and flipping it over with the proper form, again, bent knees, straight back, putting it into the cart, and then wheeling it to the place that you need the bag to go. If you don't have a cart like this and you need to move something that's just too heavy for you to lift, you can always open it up and divide it up into smaller increments. You put the material in a 5-gallon bucket or whatever. That's another way to get something moved. Need to remember, take good care of yourself. Warm up before you start gardening. Find exercises that are going to increase your strength and your mobility. It can make a huge difference in how long you can garden and how successfully. Take short breaks while you're gardening to stretch and move around. Keep your muscles limber and loose. Pace yourself. Don't say, okay, I'm going to do, 10 hours of work today. Take it short. And then if you're feeling okay, add a little bit more. Change your tasks or positions frequently. So when I was pruning the lavender hedge, I would do that for a few minutes and then get up and do a little bit of raking or do a little bit of harvesting from the garden and then go back to the pruning so that you're not constantly wearing on one set of muscles. Stay hydrated and ask for help when you need it. Now, after you've been gardening, remember that if you feel severe pain, stop working and rest before you attempt it again. If you're still in pain, just stop working. If you're in pain the next day after gardening, reduce the amount of activity you do the next time. A warm bath with Epsom salts relieves pain. And I always thought this was an old wives' tale, but I actually ran across research that says that the magnesium in Epsom salts is absorbed through the skin and helps muscle pain. Heat and cold therapy can be helpful in easing joint pain. And always talk to your healthcare provider if pain persists. Assess, what do you want to grow? Do you want herbs, a scent garden, ornamental garden, or pollinator garden, edible garden? You can have all of those in one space if you plan it right. Take a look at where your garden's going to be. The closer to the house you can get it, the better. It's easier to take care of, and you just look outside and go, oh, I need to go ahead and do that without thinking, oh, I've got to walk through a mucky, rainy yard to do this. How much time do you have? Be honest in this. Have you got just a few minutes a day, several hours a week? Plan accordingly. And then what resources are available financially? It's not free to do this kind of thing, but you can make choices that are less expensive or pay someone or use more expensive materials. So just figure out what financially you can handle. What kind of skills do you have? Can you build your own raised garden bed out of cedar? Or do you need to buy a stock tank and have it kind of a one and done kind of thing. And do you have assistants? Who's around that would be willing and happy to help you? It's always nice to be able to work with someone. This is a case study of the Lane County Master Gardeners Adaptive Gardening. They're housed in a beautiful historic house in Eugene, Oregon. And what they have a wheelchair ramp that leads to the front of the building. And then they had this garden that was old planter boxes, rocky soil, holes, odd little things growing up through it. And they decided they were going to tackle this. And this was all done with volunteer labor. So this is the garden area on the left between the ramp and the building. As you can see, it's not very wide. And this is the entrance to the garden area. There was just a big ratty rubber mat there. So this is what it looked like before. And what they did was they removed the existing soil and rock and plant material to a depth of 6 inches. They hand dug this with shovels, and then 4 inches of 3/4 minus compacted. And then they added 1/4 clean and compacted that. This is what it ended up looking like. Isn't this magnificent? Everything in the garden is measured for height, width, and supports ADA recommended distances for ease of wheelchair and walker clearance, and for ease of reach and turnaround clearance. You can see like this bed, you can reach from both sides, and it's angled, so it's easy to get to. The compacted gravel that they use is good for walkers. Wheelchairs, you have a better access with brushed concrete or pavers. They came up with quite a few different surface materials. They had some slate donated, they used the compacted gravel, they had some brick donated. So they made this all into a seamless, one level surface that is just easy for anybody to use. They also built trellises so they could garden up. There's a teepee over here, and then here's a garden trug for easy wheelchair access. And the trellises actually are on a hinge system where they can pull them, lever them down and work at waist height on those. Very clever idea. This tied for first place in the 2016 Oregon Master Gardeners Association Search for Excellence. Great job. Raised beds, we've been talking quite a bit about them. The height should be 24 to 30 inches, and your arm should be no higher than waist height when you're working. The depth front to back maximum is 48, 36 inches is better, and no more than 2 feet if accessed from one side. These are great for people in walkers or people who are able to just get around easily, but for wheelchair access, they're not the best, because you have to bring your wheelchair up along the side and then kind of twist. So you can have wheelchair specific raised beds, and this is a great start, but notice how high it is and where his arms have to be to work. Makes my shoulders hurt just looking at it. So it's a nice try, but doesn't quite work. So here's the gardening trug, and that is easy. This is in the Lane County Master Gardeners Adaptive Garden. You can easily get up into it, and then you've got deep space to plant longer rooted vegetables or plants, and then shallower things can go along the side. And here is a raised bed garden specifically designed for wheelchairs that you can adapt to the exact height that you need. Again, another good design, and the plans are available online for free. Okay, let's take a look at some of the options in your enabled garden. Pots are incredibly versatile, both in size and function. They're great for growing succulents, ornamentals, fruits and vegetables, and up to small scale trees. They don't have to be expensive. I use a lot of 10 to 25 gallon black thermoform nursery containers, and then I put pretty pots in front of them so you can't see them. But this is liquid amber. It was a volunteer in a plot that I had 4 years ago, and I kind of liked it. So I just kept it and moved it into a little bit bigger pot. And it's lovely. I get great fall cover. I really like using pots. I have a half an acre, I have so many pots just because they're easy to move around and I can put them on hard surfaces as well. If you're building a raised bed, think about making a wide enough platform where you can use it to sit and put your tools on. This side yard is lined with grow pots, excuse me, grow bags on an automatic drip system and gets a bounty of vegetables. As you can see, this is from one day's harvest this summer, right? Grows lots of peppers. Consider the possibilities of where you are and plan for the future. When we moved into our house, we had a 3-foot rotting deck all along the back of the house. We knew the deck needed to be replaced, and we knew we wanted to live here for the rest of our lives, if possible. So when we rebuilt the deck, we extended it out 3 feet in the narrow part and then to 12 feet on the wider part. And we added access from the house. There was none when we moved in. Put trees in pots, again, for screening and shade. We've got neighbors right in the back behind us, but you wouldn't know because of the pots, the trees. I've got an Asian pear growing here with great harvest, herbs, ornamental planters, and we have 2 dining spaces in this one deck and room for a small dog. So if you think about plan for the future, what kind of gardening you want to do, I've got a lot more room to add a lot more garden plants here as things go on, and maybe I get a little less able. Choose low maintenance plant. Always remember the right plant for the right place. That's in terms of sunlight, water availability. Keep the scale small if you're gardening in containers so that you can manage it and they don't become bullies and take over. Find things with low water needs so it limits your watering. And then find something with a polite growth habit. This crocosmia and the hummingbird. Crocosmia is not necessarily terribly polite. It does tend to get a little invasive, but I like putting plants in pots that the hummingbirds will enjoy, and I put them right near seating areas so that I can enjoy them and watch them. Look for available space around your house. This is a side yard. It gets full sun. It's just ugly asphalt. But can't you just see this with stock tanks full of peppers and tomatoes and eggplant and zucchini? There's lots of room there. I also suggest using casters on stock tanks, and because they've got a bottom, that way you can move them around. It's not so good with raised beds that are right on the soil, but the stock tanks you can move around, or big pots, to anything that works for you. I'm ashamed to admit that this was the pruners I used up until last year, and they were held together with duct tape. Not efficient, not good. So purchase good quality tools that can be used in multiple ways. When you're getting ready to garden, get everything together at once and bring it along with you. I tend to use a carpenter's apron with my pruners, my trowel, a notepad, just anything small that I might need to use. And then if I'm taking shovels, hose, and such, that goes in the wheelbarrow and comes along with me. Grow up, not out. We've talked about this. And we've talked about trellises, but also you can espalier fruit trees. It saves a lot of space, takes a little bit of work, but it makes them easily accessible to care for. And then irrigation systems are great. You can install drip and soaker hoses just with your standard garden faucet. Always have places to sit and rest that are close by. Plant for pollinators, give them sources of water and food. I like to have mason bees in my garden, and I have mason bees by the Asian pear tree on my deck, and I got a fantastic crop of Asian pears this fall. Keep your gardening tools clean and sharp. This sharpening file is just really great for people with weak or sore hands because it's very easy to grip, really easy to use. And last but not least, don't forget the whimsy. So today we've talked about assessing your needs, skills, and environment, being able to choose the correct tools for your abilities and the job at hand, figure out where your garden will be and what you need to do to make it functional and safe. And you've learned to consider your environmental conditions and choose the appropriate plants. And as the American Occupational Therapy Association says, spend more time enjoying the fruit of your labor. Here are the resources that some of the resources used for putting together this presentation. And I would like to point out particularly the two books, The Age-Proof Garden by Patty Cassidy, who is a master gardener here in Portland, Oregon, and The Lifelong Gardener by Tony Gattone. They both have just a wealth of information on how to garden the rest of your life. Really good tips and hacks. If you have questions, you can always go to Oregon State, our extension publications. We've got videos at the Clackamas County Master Gardeners. And please visit us for 10-minute university videos, handouts, and future classes. And again, thank you so much for attending this. And now we're going to bring in Priscilla, who's going to answer some of the questions that we have. Help answer the questions. Hi, Priscilla.
Hi. There haven't been any questions coming in, which is surprising, but I myself wondered about finding a tool for the hand size. Can you just go over that a little bit? Because I know that I have used the wrong sized. How did you go about getting the right sized pruners for your hand?
I will tell you that in the slideshow, I used a presentation from Felco Pruners, and you measure from the bottom of the top of your wrist to the tip of your finger. And then anything below 6 7/8 is a small tool. I can't remember the exact numbers, but then 6 7/8 above to like 7.5 is medium, and then above 7.5 is a large. So it's just the distance between your wrist and the tip of your middle finger. Now, a lot of pruning companies don't have the different sizes. So that's why it's really, if you can, either go to a place where you can try out different sizes and or go buy them from a place where you can return them easily and get something different. But between the size, is it ratchet? Is it, a rotating handle? The type of blade, there's just so many variations and it's such an important part of your toolbox. If you can spend the time and get the right thing, that would be best.
Great. All right, so I have a question that came in, and this person, her knees are her problems. Suggestions for serious gardening when you can no longer kneel. What are some of the adaptations a person can look to do?
One of my favorite tools and tricks is using either the seated the kneeler seater thing, or better yet, the gardening stool that rolls along with you. That's on my particular list. Not only does it keep you off your knees, but gives you a nice base to work from, and then you can scooch along. I hate using like a pad on my knees and then, I need to move down 5 feet, pick it up, move it, being able to roll along would be great. And I think that would be a really good way to do it. If you look also at some of the resources that we have, like I said, we only had 30 minutes. So it was, kind of had to do a lot of things fast. But if you research some of the resources that are presented in the presentation, there are a lot of things that you can focus on specifically, but the ones that I can, think of right off my head is that wheeled garden seat is just really cool.
I think that's on my wish list.
Yeah.
All right. How about garden designs? When's a good time to start planning that garden design? When I'm in my 40s or when I'm in my 60s? When is the best time to start planning that so that I'm going to have access for a lifelong of gardening?
The best time is now. So when a lot of people in their 60s are looking at, okay, I really like living here and I want to make this space age appropriate, age adaptable as I get older. But if you're in a space, you never know what's going to happen, right? Number one. So you fall and you know, break a leg or something, you still want to garden. So I think it's kind of a lot like making ADA housing kind of the standard, is that if as you're working in your garden, always be thinking, you know, how will this work if I'm here when I'm older? And there are some things that you can do, like right now in my vegetable garden, I have wood chips between the, the raised beds, which is not the best for if I'm in a walker or in a wheelchair. But I know that that's something that, okay, I need to be able to change that and move it into gravel later on. But then always having the space to work just makes life easier. So I would say start in your 40s or wherever you are, whatever age you are and whatever place you're in. You can also, I mean, I've lived in condos and I've had a great garden on the deck. There's a lot you can do.
That's great. Well, this is kind of a last call. If you're thinking about a question, type it into the Q&A box. And oh, here comes one last. So Joan wants to know about your Asian pear. Is it a dwarf or a small variety? Can you give her some tips if she wants to plant one in a pot like you did?
I can. It is a dwarf. It's a semi-dwarf. It's not a dwarf. And I got so many pears on it that I didn't cull enough of them. So I actually broke some branches. It's very flexible. So I thought, you know, we have espaliered apples and I thought this is going to be great. So that blue stock tank that was in one of the pictures, that's coming on my deck, and that's where I'm going to plant my Asian pear. And then I'm going to put trellising behind it. And it's very flexible branches. It's pretty young. It's only about 3 years old. So it's a great time to adapt it over. And then I put mason bees right next to it, because when the bees come out, the pear is in blossom. And I have on my 3-year-old pear tree, I got like 50 pears. You know, I had to cull some. They were great. So just really nice, easy care plant, really. And it's doing very well in the pot. It's in the pot that it's in is really too small. So it should be happier next year.
Yeah, I have a neighbor who has a lovely lemon tree, and it is on rollers. So
Yeah.
during the summertime, it's out on her patio and it's gorgeous. And then in the wintertime, it goes into the deep side of the garage underneath the grow light. And she's been really very successful. So I think planting in pots is a great idea.
Yeah. Lemon trees are great especially if you've got really nice sunny windows, you can bring them in the house and the fragrance is amazing. I have a greenhouse, so my lemon trees and my Buddha's hand go in the greenhouse in the winter. They can survive in our winters with a little bit of care outside, but it's always nice to take good care of them. And again, having them on rollers is a really good idea.
One last question, and I think this is going to be really a wide open question, but where are the best places to look for tools, try on tools here in the Portland area? If someone wanted to go and, you know, that
is a wide open question.
Yeah.
I've been to several stores and most stores don't have a huge variety. You know, they've got kind of like one thing and then they've got another thing. So what I would suggest is to go online and see what you think might work best for you and that brand, and then Google where you can find that brand, and then go to that store and take a look. And most of these gardening centers and stores will be helpful in saying, okay, can I take this out of the package and try it? And they'll usually let you do that. So Google it first and then find it.
Yeah, I actually found one of my best pruners. I was at a small gardening shop, and I saw one of the people working with that tool, and it looked good to me. And, I was able to have a conversation. So, if you've got time, also getting out into some of the smaller nurseries and talking to people who are doing this day in and day out versus a big box store where something is packaged up that you can't manipulate. So I hope that helps you, Carol. And I think that's about how much time we have for questions today. And I just want to thank you so much, Leah, for giving us some ideas on how to continue gardening and staying healthy and being lifelong gardeners.
My pleasure. It was great fun.
Thanks.